don't take it wrong, but sometimes some people don't know how to capture African Americans or blacks or people of color on film. You know what I mean? Sometimes they make people look muted in a certain way. We get it, you know. You
he means
understand?
ashy. The white people are saying ashy.
No,
Yes.
but so it's kind of like a multi-tiered question.
Yeah.
But you know, having the ability to paint, and you know, in the composition of certain shots, you know, as a director, you look at it and you see how it's framed out, and then you kind of thinking cinematically, you thinking how it looks on a big screen, and not to beat the whole TV thing in the head, but it may seem for some people a challenge of how you can have that same kind of, like when you actually make it and composing that shot, how it will look on television.
Sure.
Do you feel like that's a hindrance for you? Do you look at that as a challenge as a challenge as a director? Do you look at it as a bad, like, how do you?
It's a great question. Well, I have to give a shout out to anybody. I mean, you know, I'm gonna say Bradford Young. You know, I'm gonna say Bradford. So you need to know this brother named Bradford Young, who is my cinematographer extraordinaire. They would vibe. If anybody knows Bradford or knows about Bradford, I think they'd have a good time together hanging out. But anyway, he's a good brother, and he is a genius when it comes to the photographic image, particularly the cinematic image, and particularly around you know, how we capture our tonality and our skin tones and all of that, which is a very specific conversation that we have ad nauseum every day.
Yeah,
we're on the set,
it's
and
important.
always. You know, I always say, you know, in my film Middle of Nowhere, we were playing with the idea of how black people look in dark rooms. You know, and you know, when I go in my house at night, the light's not on, and what does that look like? And so often folks are afraid to put darker hues against darker backdrops because it's just going to be teeth and eyes. You know what I mean? And that's not necessarily the case, and sometimes it is the case, and it's beautiful. And so really playing with all of that texture and all of that tone and what that means to deconstruct it and experiment with it. So we did that a lot on previous things. This is our fourth project we worked on together. And so with Selma, it was just so deeply embedded in our, you know, love of our people, you know, the legacy of the civil rights movement, but then also just, we really were always playing with the idea of the black body and deconstructing that in all kinds of ways. So we were very rigorous with our use of close-up, with our use of profile. We like just a little bit of a rim of light just on the profile. You may not be able to see everything. There's a whole scene where there's two dark men, David Oyelowo and Coleman Domingo, sitting in a dark jail cell.
Right.
And there's just a little peak of light. And it's a funny story. That was our first day of shooting. So that was the first day to go to the studio, and they were like, no joke, ordered extra dailies, colorists to go in, and like had money set aside to reshoot it. And me and Brad are like, that's what it's supposed to look like.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
And eventually that's in the film. But, you know, no disrespect to them, but that image, just the image of two dark-skinned people sitting in a dark space was so startling and rare that it needed extra dailies colorists, like just to see is there information there? They call it information. Like, if we want to turn it up, can we? You know what I mean? And Brad was like, yeah, there's information in there. And the information was like the tip of the nose. Like you could like when you cranked it up, you could see like that. They were like, but I mean, the idea of, you know, translating that kind of photographic experimentation with how that really related to the narrative. I mean, at that point in jails in the mid-'60s, in the Deep South, you know, wasn't no pretty light coming in the window. You know what I mean? Like, how do you make that real? How do you make it dank? How do you make it feel like our reference was making it feel like the hull of a slave ship? Like, that was what we were trying to do. And so to do that, you can't be like giving them an extra fill, like you know what I mean? You have to just go for it. Yeah, the beauty light. Yes.